All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Just a quick, I just want everybody to get an idea of who's talking here. So this is me, Caleb Funk. I'm one of the technical team managers here with Imagineet, and this is my 19th year with Imagineet. So I've been doing this for a little while, and as I was getting ready for this, matter of fact, we'll see in a moment, I just took a quick trip down memory lane because I've done a lot of these What's New Vault webcasts through the years, and it just occurred to me, just how many of them I've done and where I started. Just a little bit about Imagineet before we get started. And these are some areas that we work in, particularly within the professional services. So as we're looking at Vault, as we're looking at some of these new features, and there's quite a few that expand what you can do and need some configuration. So whether it's taking a look at what you currently have, your current workflow, where you want to go, optimizing, that workflow so we can get it where it needs to be, and then training your people in the new features, that's definitely a big part of what we do. Being an industry leader within those services area is really core to my team and what we do on a day-to-day basis. And Imagineet itself, this isn't up to date, Cassie. We probably need to update this as I was looking through just some different acquisitions and expansions that we've had. But this will give you an idea, a conceptual idea of just the coverage that we have. It's all through North America, very heavily. It's one of these dots up here is me in Toledo, Ohio. So very heavily in through that area. Got a lot of different locations. And in almost every single one of those locations, we have technical experts that I learn a lot from every day. And I'm sure everyone can. And, I tend to be the one doing a lot of these presentations and those types of things. I absolutely love it. But I learn really from the people at all these different dots that we have. And it's great to have that deep bench available to us. Imagineet is part of RAND Worldwide. So we deal with the Autodesk solutions as well as some other tools, professional services and training. And then we also do like scanners like Geosystem scanners, different things like that. We've got another part of our company, RAND 3D, that deals with Dassault software and Dassault and PC training. And Ascent, if you've ever taken a class on AutoCAD, you probably did it with an Ascent book, is another part of our company that creates the professional training materials. That's for Autodesk, for PTC, and Dassault. So it's great to be part. I always say I've been here 19 years. There's a reason why, and this is part of it. Having that deep bench that I just talked about, and then having these different areas that all kind of work together to really broaden that depth of experience. But what we're here for today is to take a look at Vault 2019 and some of the new things that are available in it, and it really breaks down to these three areas. So we'll take a look at what we can do with collaborating outside of Vault, and that's always been a big topic. And we got this great thing of sharing files with inside of Vault, but how do we send it outside? We'll take a look at a couple productivity improvements and one very, very specific thing with the enhanced administrative experience. It's a great tool, a great addition to the feature set that we have within Vault. So I kind of talked about, the trip down memory lane, and I got started thinking about where I started with Vault and where it's been. So I had to dig this up, and Vault 1.0 came out back in July of 2003. So we're looking at about 15 years of Vault overall. It's 15 years and about 20 releases. And part of the reason is because way back in 2003, they were releasing Inventor about every 6 months and Vault right along with it. So Vault 1.0 was Inventor only. You had to be on subscription. It was like a special download. I don't have a whole lot of my customers that started on Vault 1.0. I'm sure there's some out there. I'm sure someone could say, oh, yeah, we did. I remember when it came in. But for working with that, and that was like Inventor 5, I believe, was the version of Inventor that was with. So where really that I started working with it was probably a few years later. It had been around. We had talked to customers about it, but it wasn't being really adopted. Probably until Vault 4 or 5 is where we started seeing people pick it up and really start to implement it. And it also, Vault 5.0, I put that in there because that was available to AutoCAD solutions. So before that, it was Inventor only, and then they opened it up where AutoCAD had an enhancement where they could put it in and have it as part of that. And then Vault 2015 R2, I put that in there because that was the first mid-year release. And we're seeing more of that. If you are on subscription with Autodesk, there's a lot of things that are available to you as part of that where you can get new feature access before it's maybe released as part of a Vault main for example, 2018 had 2018.1, 2, and 3, I believe. So there were point releases along the way. And all of that gets incorporated, all of those point releases then get incorporated into the next full release. So there's definitely benefit to that. In 2015 R2, that was a big deal. That was the first one we saw where that kind of came in like that. And of course, then we here are today. I guess actually it's June, it's not May, but we're looking at Vault 2019. So they came out in May, and now we're take a look at some of the features we have available to that. But I thought that was kind of interesting, looking at that trip down memory lane and thinking about, where it came from, where we started with it, and, as it's moved along. So the first enhancement, and I'll point this out, and this isn't really an enhancement, but it just struck me so much, is they changed the colors. I swear to you, from Vault 1.0 till now, Vault has been green or teal or that kind of in-between color that we see there on the left with my Vault 2018. And as I was installing my new Vault, something felt wrong. I thought, what is going on here? I'd look at the icons, and it took me much longer than I care to admit to realize they had changed the colors. So I'll just throw that out there. It doesn't affect anything else, but even the icons look pretty much the same. Everything looks pretty much the same, but they kind of adopted that inventor color scheme of orange as opposed to the green. So that's the first thing I noticed. All right. One thing I will point out is that a lot of the enhancements that we're going to take a look at are specifically from customer requests. So the Vault Idea Station, and you can just Google that, Vault Idea Station. It's part of their forums that they have, and it's places where you can submit ideas. And the Vault team will tell you you don't see them, it's not like you can submit it on a Monday and 2 weeks later you'll see it. They really vet them out. They go through, they take a look. If enough people are liking your idea or saying, yes, this is it, this is exactly what we're looking for, the possibility exists that it will appear in later releases of Vault. I know customers have come to me, whether I'm doing a presentation like this or we're sitting down talking through about their current infrastructure, whatever it would be, and I'll hear sometimes, well, gosh, is there any way you can get Autodesk to change this? I have exactly as much sway as any of you do, and the best way to request an enhancement to make that part of future releases is to go right in there and talk to Autodesk directly. By putting your ideas into that forum, you can give kudos to ideas that you like. Definitely push them out there, because what we're seeing within this one has largely been driven by these customer requests that we see on the Idea Station. So these three key areas, and I mentioned this a little bit in my agenda, but I'll kind of come back to these. These are kind of the key things that we see within the new version of Vault. And so streamlined external communication. How do we get files from Vault to people outside of Vault? The idea of productivity enhancements. We're always looking for those things that make us a little more, make it a little faster, that maybe, sand down the rough edges on something we were doing, or as a workflow that took this many steps and now we can reduce it to this. And then the idea of the administrative experience, what we can do there to enhance that and push that further. So the first one we'll look at is this idea of streamlined external communication. And I mentioned this, that there's point releases of Vault that come along. And one of the point releases allowed for shared views. And the idea of a shared view is I can take a visual representation from my Vault and put it to an external website where it can then be viewed. I can get feedback on it. And I can, people can take a look at the file, put notes on it, all these different types of things. And this is something that is now built into Vault. It's a really smooth way of doing this. Now, my first thought when I saw this is that this would be a DWF file that we're sharing to somewhere. And it sort of is, but what it really uses is it allows us to send something from Vault directly to the Autodesk Viewer. And Autodesk Viewer, if you're not using that now, you probably should be. It is a really, really powerful tool, completely separate from Vault. It's going to be a really powerful tool to share files for viewing, to view files that you may not have a viewer for. If you're working with external data and someone sends something to you in a format that you can't easily pull up and view, you just want to take a look at it, viewer.autodesk.com. Absolutely fantastic site that allows us, it hosts the views that we have, but it also is going to allow us to just drag and drop other files to start viewing within there. It's all online. There's nothing to download, which is another benefit of this, because I've seen it before where I want to share something with a customer or with a client, so I'll go ahead and send it out as a DWF file. Maybe they don't have the DWF viewer, so we go back and forth a little on that. With the viewer.autodesk.com, nothing to download. It all happens within the format of working right there within the website. We can view it all. We can see the information within there. So I'm just going to jump back just a second to this. What the new version of Vault allows us to do is generate directly to the Autodesk Viewer site and gives us a link that we can then share and people can go view that particular file. So I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop here real quick. I think I am. Share my screen, monitor 1, there we go. And I'll pull up, there's my Vault. So within here, I've got my Vault information set up. I can see my different components. And one of the things that I can do is right-click, and I can simply say Share View. So I can take a particular, whether it's a drawing, whether it's an assembly. I'll grab this little part. I've got this guy right here, and I'll go ahead and say I want to share a view of that. So there's a couple options I have. It tells me I'm going to upload a view. Again, this is not the actual data. My IP stays exactly where it is. This is just a representation of it. And I'll say wheel for what's new, not view for what's new. If I wanted to, if I'm uploading an assembly, I can hide component names. I can hide the part properties. So I can turn some of that information off so that we're not sharing all that. I was going to say go ahead and go. So it takes that view of that particular wheel that I have, processes it, and then uploads it to that viewer site. You notice it actually does it pretty quickly here, and now I've got the option. I can go ahead and view that, which is what I'll do. I'll pull up my site and view it, and I could, if I wanted to, copy the link. And I'll go ahead and just copy the link out to my clipboard for a moment, but then I'll say View in a browser. So it takes me right to this Autodesk Viewer, and it'll load up that particular file that I just put up there. And even as I start to take a look, as I come in and I can see this, I can begin to see I've got a lot more information going on. I've got it looks different than a DWF. I don't know what all they're using. I don't understand the full technology behind this, but it is really powerful. I do have a properties palette, and I didn't send out any properties with this one. I told it to hide the properties. But I got my properties palette, and if I had models, I could have my model browser to see all the information there. So this is a really cool way that I could share this information with someone externally. That way I don't have to, I didn't really do anything. I don't pack and go. I just take it and I send it off to that particular site, and it kicks my information right out there so I can view that. I'm going to grab, I'm going to shut this down. I'm going to go ahead and view. And I've got a new pane that I can view called Shared Views. And this can be docked. I can store this in a couple different places. But you can see here I've got a couple different things that I've shared out. So I can control and understand all the views that I've shared. I can delete it if I wanted to. I could just say, you know what, get it out of there. If I need to send a link to someone else, I can copy it out. By default, you can see these, I just did these today, these expire in 30 days. So the viewable is only up there for 30 days unless I specifically go in and extend it. Now it just goes to 31 days because that's kind of the upper limit that we have on that. But if it was down, if we had dropped this down, there's only 1 day left, I can extend it out so that we can go up and extend it further so more people can view it. This is such a great way to share this information back and forth. Again, right now, all we're sharing is just the viewable information, right? We're able to take the information that we have, send this viewable out, and people can see that. You know what, so in this case, and I didn't point this out, we can add comments to these different items. We can see all that information. I'm going to go ahead and take it and copy this link, and I will stop sharing just for a moment. And I'll share that link here just so you guys can go take a look at it. I mean, that's all it's going to be is we'll be able to see some of that. So Cassie, I'm going to drop this link in a Q&A. I don't know if you can push it out to everybody, but anyone that wants to take a look at that should be able to see that information. I think so. Well, maybe. All right, we'll send that out. So that external collaboration through that Autodesk Viewer is such a wonderful tool. It's super easy. The setup is incredibly minimal. All you have to do is right-click and say Share the View, and it'll take it out and go from there. And it's viewer.autodesk.com is where that really goes. So that's step one, or I should say level one. We can share the viewable of that file so that people can see it. Level two would be the idea of I want to deliver. This is a one-time push kind of idea. I want to deliver files to customers and suppliers. And the big idea here is it's a way that I can share information from behind my firewall out to Autodesk Drive, give people access to a folder so that they can get the information. So this is one direction. I can send it out to, take some information, send it out to Autodesk Drive. And what it really does is it extends Pack and Go to work with Autodesk Drive and Fusion Team. And if you don't have Autodesk Drive, it's part of the subscription benefit with Vault Workgroup and Professional. It allows you space. It's kind of like Dropbox. I mean, if you're familiar with Dropbox or Google Drive, it's that idea, but it has a tool called Desktop Connector that ensures that all of the CAD references go along with it. It understands I'm sending this particular file and makes sure that it basically grabs everything along with it. So where we've done Pack and Goes before and sent them to people, whether it's, on an external drive or, really common is Dropbox, right? We take it, we Pack and Go it, we send it to Dropbox. The problem is on Dropbox, if I open the assembly, it doesn't understand that it needs to open those other parts. I can't just download the assembly and open it and it finds the other pieces. This is going to be CAD aware. It's going to understand that it needs to bring that other information right along with it and allows us to send the information to people in a really much smarter way than we have seen before. I'm going to share my monitor again here real quick. So I've gone through and cancel out. Okay. So I've gone through and I've taken the time to set up a few things, and I'll talk about some of that setup here in just a moment. But to give you an idea, I can simply upload a file to my cloud drive. In this case, I've got an assembly and a subassembly and some components, and I can say I want to upload that to my cloud drive. Oh, I deleted my mapping. I'll pull it up here in a second. But I can take that mapping, push that information out to that, and again, it's just off the right click. What we're looking at here is a one-time push, basically, is what we're doing. I haven't configured anything in terms of, it's not bidirectional for this level. It's just a push up to that. But that upload to cloud drive allows us to move it from internal to an external source, whoever that might be. And that's a big part of the reason for this one. So level one, we're going through and we're sending out a viewable. And people can take a look at the viewable that we have and see the information that's there, comment on it, take a look at that information. With this, I can go a little bit further and I can send it out to, send the actual files that go along with that. There is a level three. And the level three that I have is I can set up a bidirectional, and I could be pulling from, in this case, I could be pulling from external collaborators. I could be pushing to external collaborators. You can even set it up for bidirectional, so we can push and pull files. And this uses Fusion 360. This uses a Fusion 360, and it has to be a shared workspace within Fusion 360. It has to be a team hub, is the terminology they use for that. And this was really interesting to kind of dig into and see. I had worked with Fusion 360 before, but not to this level, not to where we're extracting. We've got a hub and we've got multiple people working on it. So this is just such a cool idea of how we can send this out. And the way that this works is this is bidirectional exchange of CAD documents, so drawings, parts, assemblies, whatever. It's CAD aware. So again, it understands. As we share it to Fusion 360, it will understand in there that there is this concept of having the tools available so we can, if I get an assembly, parts need to come along with that. Drawings and the parts they relate back to. And this can be very selective. So where I was, actually, let me talk about that. So selective, I can say I want to share this folder, and I'm going to share it to this particular project. And then I can assign people rights to that particular project in the Fusion 360 Hub. So I might have 3 different projects going, 3 different sets of collaborators. We can control what data goes out and who works with that. This works with Job Processor. So as we've gone up these levels, the level of complexity also goes up. With the first one, we're sharing a viewable, no big deal. We just pump that viewable out. Here's the link, go view it. Once we get to here, we have to have the Job Processor set up, and on state change, we can push files to a particular site, and it will replicate that information then. So we've got a lot of options now with how we want to set that up. And like I mentioned, Fusion Team is required for this. So you can get a trial of Fusion Team. It's kind of a super extended Dropbox with how we can allow people to access files who can get in and see them. It's different than Drive. Drive is just kind of like CAD Dropbox, where we've got a series of folders and we can have access to them. Fusion Team, this is where we get into where we can have team members, rights, different things like that. So there's a lot of different ways of accessing this. And again, I'll just show a little bit of how we can set this up and where this will be. So I'll share my monitor 1. And I'll get rid of that guy. Okay. So here's my monitor 1, and I'll go right to my administration. Under my Vault settings, we have a new tab called Collaborate. And I've done a little bit of background work already. So I went through and set up a particular, I set up my Fusion Team, I set up folders within my Fusion Team, and I've got that portion of it configured already so that I can go to this next piece. So I'm going to configure now a particular mapping for this. And this is what it was. I set one up and deleted it. That's why it was yelling at me earlier about just pushing a file out. But I'll set up a mapping, and we'll call this just what's new. All right, so I am going to map this to a cloud drive, and I'm going to, I'll go ahead and tell it to upload related files on a release basis. So it's going to take my leading revision. You know, if it's an A, it's a B, that's what it's going to take with that. I'm going to specify, I'll just take it right here from my root. And now, oh, where my cloud drive set up? I can tell it what cloud drive folder I want it to go to. Where'd you go? Had it just a second ago. And with this is where the Fusion Team comes in so that I can determine where that's going to go in the cloud. So what folder it's going to go to, what part of that it's going to go to once we get up to that level. I'm going to add a folder. So in this case, you notice that I'm saying the Vault folder goes to here. This is where I can be really selective with what I'm going to do. So I could come in, say, yes, we're going to look at everything, but now we're going to say this particular folder, does it upload to the drive or does it download from the cloud drive? Does it allow for bidirectional sync? Do I want to affect all the subfolders that go with that? Do I want to do that just manually, which is what I have now, or I can set up every 8 hours it pushes or daily at midnight it pushes to that. And I can even go further where I can filter on specific properties. I may not want certain files to go. I might say if it is has a life cycle state that contains review, I don't want those files going up because I'm currently looking at them. They're not ready to go yet. And I can say, yep, let's push that information up. That's what I want to have go with that. So once I have that mapping, I can push that information to my Fusion Cloud, and my Fusion Cloud, my Fusion team is where that's going to be. Those files, for people that have access to them, they can be edited, they can be downloaded from Fusion Cloud, edited, changed, pushed back up, and I can pull them back in. So the 3 levels would be, I can push out a viewable, I can just send someone files, I can say send these over, or I can go this far where we've got a bidirectional push-pull so that we can understand who's we've got, I send it out, someone's working on it, I'll pull it back in and move it through my information within Vault. What I typically see is people are doing this, like I said, with Dropbox or a lot of times with email. I'll just take these files, check them out to me, send them over to the customer. When they're done, I'll check them back in. This replaces that idea. It all works directly within Vault. It's all based off of the permissions that I set up for that, and it's a great way of extending that. So this, to me, this is one of the biggest things that we see is that ability to go beyond our firewall, to move out to a larger audience and share with those collaborators that are going to be working with that. Okay, so those are the big idea of the collaboration tools. The way that those are going to, being able to extend it beyond and have other people access that information. There's also some productivity improvements just within the software. And these are things, as I mentioned, it's not anything where I'm like, oh my gosh, that changes everything, like the collaboration tools, which were a big, big change. This is more, oh man, I always wish I could, and it's kind of along those lines. So some of these are pretty straightforward, but I'll give you an idea. The checkout command is available to us now from within the Inventor bill of materials. So if you're in Inventor and you're going along working on a particular assembly and you realize you're looking at the bill of materials within Inventor, realize you need to update something, you used to have to cancel the bill of materials, go to that particular file, check it out, make the changes, and then go back in. Now we can check in and check out directly from the bill of material level so that we can make those property updates, whatever changes we would need right from there. So it's, again, we could do it before, it was just a further distance to go. Now it's directly within that tool. Kind of along those lines is there's an option when I'm placing something into Inventor or into AutoCAD or opening a particular file, there's an option to check that says ignore obsolete state. So even though I have permission in Vault to see obsolete files, I most likely do not want to deal with those in CAD. If they're obsolete, I don't even, it's pretty rare that I have to go access them. So we can hit that checkbox so that we don't accidentally get an obsolete file. It'll just ignore it completely. It allows us to get the information that is, more relevant to what we're working on than, some obsolete files that were pretty close to the name I was looking for and didn't realize that I didn't want them. So it's just a simple little checkbox, a safeguard, so that we're not accidentally opening those files or placing them into our assemblies. Another one, I thought this was pretty cool, send folder link to share content. So the idea of getting a hyperlink to a file has been around for a little while, but it wasn't, a lot of times if I send it to someone, and this was always internal, and it still is, this has to be within the firewall, but if I were to send it to someone who didn't have, I could get a link, but if I sent it to someone who didn't have the Vault thick client, they only had the thin client, it just wouldn't work. It just was not realistic for what we were doing. So I'll do this real quick. I'm going to share my screen here again. And I'll just take a particular folder. And under File, I can send a link. I'm just going to go ahead and do that and let my Outlook pop up here. Oh, my Outlook's got to start. So my Outlook will pop up with a new email for me. And it's based off of this folder, and you'll notice that there is a Vault client link. So this is the link right to the client, and you can log right into Vault from that. And it also has a thin client link. So it knows where that particular file is within the thin client. So depending on whether I'm working with the thick client or the thin client, I can choose the appropriate link and go right to it. This is one of those simple things, but it's just so nice. So if I'm working with someone in purchasing or a project manager who just has the thin client, it's very easy for me just to ship that over to them, say, hey, here's the one I'm talking about, take a look at this. The link takes them directly to that. So just a simple tool, but a really good one. While I'm talking about thin client, one other option that they added to that was the ability to only show the latest version. And you have to set this up at the administrator level. But what we've seen to this point is it will show us the latest version and all the revisions. So we'll see A, B, C, and D all the way back through there. And I've had a few customers say, well, you know, you pull it up and there's 8 options, and you know, sometimes you got to sort, you're trying to figure out which one you want. All these people need to see. You know, manufacturing doesn't care so much about what it looked like at Rev A. They just need the current one. They just want to look at that. So there are a few ways we'd worked around it and done some things. But now we can just say, hey, all we want to see is the latest version, and then that's all that's going to appear in the thin client. Again, simple checkbox. You set it up at the administrator level, but it really does sand off some of those rough edges of dealing with the thin client and understanding if you're getting to the correct file or not. And I've got that in the wrong spot, Cassie, so I'll come back to that. I moved that to the end. I'm not ready for questions yet because I've still got some things to talk about. One of them is the enhanced administrative experience, which is a big way of saying they made a pretty significant change to one area of Vault that really, really kind of needed it. And for me, I mentioned all these years I've dealt with Vault, and you saw that timeline. Whether it's Vault, Inventor, AutoCAD, whatever, as new releases have come out and new features and new options have become available, to me they tend to fall into the, wow, that's nice, or, oh, I didn't even know I needed that bucket, or a lot of times they fall into the finally that's here bucket. And this next one is finally we can create custom roles. So on the Vault administrative side, roles control how we access the different areas of Vault and what we can do. And for so long, when we set up Vaults, we'll talk to customers and say, well, we got to determine who has what role. And there's this, you know, level 1 role, level 2 role. And they said, oh man, I really want people to be level 1, but I also need them to be able to do this other thing. Oh, sorry, nope, hard-coded, we can't change it. That's exactly how it is. You know, we're done. Now we do have the option of creating a brand new role. We can create any role that we have. We can assign whatever permissions we want to that particular role. It's a great addition. And yeah, it definitely falls under finally. Because this is something through the years I thought, oh, it just seems to me to be so simple. And it's absolutely wonderful. So I want to jump into my administrative area for that. So under administration, under my global settings, nothing has changed here. This looks very familiar to what we've seen through the years. But as I look in roles and permissions and I say manage roles, I now can say I want to do a new role, and I can delete other roles. There might, you know, as I look in here, there's tons of different roles that we can assign to people, and maybe I don't need half of these. I tend to leave everything the same and just, you know, customize something. But a real common thing that we have is people want document editor level 1, and I'll just edit this one real quick. And these are all the things that it can do. And document editor level 1, what you can't do in there is rename a file. And people say, well, that's, you know, gosh, I want them to be able to rename a file. I say, okay, great, let's make them level editor 2. And now we can not only rename files, we can delete them. Oh, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to have people being able to delete files, but they do need to rename them. So there was a trade-off. Do we assign it to only some people? Where do we go? Now I could take that editor level 2, copy it, and I'm just going to call it custom document editor level 2. And simply enough, I can come over here and remove different characteristics from that. So maybe I don't want this particular role to be able to move files or delete files, even conditionally. Maybe I want them to, I don't want them to be able to delete folders. So I'll remove that. And so they can create folders, read folders, but they can't rename them. For whatever reason, our company standard doesn't allow for that. And just like that, I'm able to create that custom role for that person or for that group of people that I want to assign this to. So while this is a simple addition, it's definitely a powerful addition to what we would have. So I'll just say OK. And now as I create users, I can assign them that custom role. Come in here, grab Fred. You know, what role do I want him to have? And sure enough, my custom document editor level 2 is now available to me. So I can assign that role to that individual or that group. So that, I love to see that level of control and that level of customization come in, because for so long we were just kind of stuck with what we had, but now we can extend that out to go to these different areas. One other quick thing, and I don't even have a slide for it, but because it's it's one of those things not everyone uses, but I will just mention another area that they updated was the Autoloader tool. And a restriction that it had on it for a long time is you had to be administrator to load files in. And a matter of fact, it wasn't someone with administrative rights. You had to have the administrator account, the Vault admin account, to do that. And they've opened that up so that even if you're a document editor level 2 or a custom role that you create, but as long as you have document editor level 2 is the one we always think of. That's kind of the lowest level that you can work with to begin loading those files in, because you can then create folders and add files to them. So it was just a new, one more little thing that kind of got opened up with working with Vault. So those big areas, the idea of file collaboration, being able to share not only those visualization files, being able to push final documents, or even that full round trip, that's a big, big deal that's in there. And I love the fact that they are listening to customers and adding some of those things that just make our lives easier. I don't have to look at obsolete files. I can come back to the idea of editing directly within the bill of materials within Inventor. The way they've updated the Thin client, some of those things, again, we could do it before, but there were you worked around it a little bit. And custom roles, absolutely. It's a very, very big part of what we would want to have within here. So that is the big kind of broad overview of the different tools we have available to us within here. And Cassie, I'm going to kind of open it up. I don't know if any questions have come in as I've gone through.